there was one time we had this crazy deal. This woman was insane, out of her mind.
Thank you for that referral.
I owe Walt and everybody at 2020 Real Estate a lot of many drinks. Welcome to the Realtor-ish podcast. I'm your host, Juliana Gainsbourg. This podcast is all about helping entrepreneurs grow their business through real estate and business development strategies. In each episode, my guests and I will chat about the real when it comes to real estate. If you like what you hear, follow us on your favorite streaming platform. Welcome to the Realtor-ish podcast. I'm your host, Juliana Gainsbourg, and today I have a very special guest, a friend, Walt Marchowsky. How are you?
Hey, Juliana. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Walt is a connoisseur, I feel like, of real estate. I feel like you kind of have a couple different avenues that we'll go down and we'll talk about this week. So to get started, Walt, give me just, for the people that don't know you, even though a lot of people know you, tell me a little bit about yourself and your path, how you got into real estate.
I was very fortunate. Right out of high school, my uncle was an investor, and he took me out to work on his properties right out of high school. So when I was 18, I started painting, doing like labor work, working on his investment properties, and I also had a child on the way at 18, so made me pretty responsible at that age and very determined. So when I was working with my uncle, I learned he had a crew of people that worked with him, and I learned how to do contracting work, collect rent, deal with tenants, just the overall investment side of it.
Yeah.
And then bought my first property when I was 18. So I bought a duplex and renovated the basement and stayed in the basement, rented out the top 2 floors, and always worked on the side and had a full-time job. And the rent's pretty much paid for my living expenses. And I was excited about it. And the following year, I bought another one. And almost every year after that, I bought another investment property and just kept turning that money over. When I was about 30 years old, someone that I was with told me, why don't you get your real estate license instead of just buying the investments? You can find them yourself. And I did. I took the real estate test and was very lucky. I had a lot of good connections, and I was able to start out with RE/MAX. At the time, RE/MAX wasn't taking new agents, and the broker actually knew I actually bought more properties than some of the agents were selling. So I was a little experienced that way, and when I became a real estate agent, my career took off right away. A lot of people were already coming to me for real estate, so I had, I think, a foot in the door already. And I was with RE/MAX for quite a few years, and then partway through my career, I got involved in a property management company, and then a few years after that, I opened up my own company with 2020 Real Estate, and within 4 years, we opened 3 offices and got a lot of agents working with us, and we do full-time property management. So it's kind of the path that I took.
I think like just having, that's a great point that you made. I've always talked about the perception. So like whether you didn't even have your license yet, and I'm sure people were already like, hey, Walt, like, what do you think about this? Or, hey, I think I want to start doing this. And that automatically is like building your business that way because people know to come to you
100%.
when it's about real estate.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that I was doing it. It
right.
was just, people were just coming to you, asking questions. And like you just said, like getting the license, it just emphasized that I knew what I was doing already without the actual license. And then once I got the license, it was just learning how to explain documents compared to just signing documents.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful that everybody in my path led me to this direction. So
yeah, I mean, it was good for you too, as representing yourself, like knowing what you were getting into more on like the legal side and that kind of thing. When did you know? Because I feel like I've had this conversation when people start to go over their goals and how they want to expand their business. Some people go in the direction where they want to own their own brokerage or be a broker, or go in a different direction like that, build a team out. When did you know or decide you're like, okay, I'm going to leave my current brokerage and open my own brokerage?
I feel I was kind of like forced into the situation that I was in. I was a partner in a property management company, but I was also a full-time real estate agent with RE/MAX.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wearing 2 different hats. I loved working with clients and showing them houses, selling houses, and finding investment properties for my clients. And then the management side was the everyday stuff, the collecting rents,
right.
Doing maintenance, evictions, all that stuff. The partner that I had at the time, he was involved in restaurants and bars and just seemed like we both had our own paths.
Yeah.
So we decided to mutually separate. And I took all my clients, and I had staff that worked for me at the time. So I just opened up my own company with the management. And at the time, I didn't think of being a broker as far as recruiting agents.
Yeah.
So I stayed with Remax for a full year with the new company open. And once people found out that I was a broker, they started asking if they could come work for me. And luckily, I took that path, and I started like educating my agents, doing goal oriented stuff, and
Yeah.
started becoming that role, and kind of learned as I went. And I've been pretty good. I mean, obviously, I opened up the 3 offices,
Yeah.
so I'm leaning more towards my direction with the broker role compared to the salesperson. But I still like taking clients out to look for houses. I like listing the houses. I'm more of a people person, and just share my experience with the agents, and the agents seem to feel that's the way to go with their career paths.
Yeah. I have like not a ton, but I have a decent amount of people like in my world in real estate that do a very good book of business. And every once in a while, I'll see them out showing a house. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you don't need to be here right now. Like, go home. Like,
No, I mean, that's how I
but people
started.
love it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always like, and the other thing too, like I grew up at F in the Boulevard, which is like
Yeah.
lower Northeast Philly, and now I'm in Bucks County. So the areas that I'm living in now is stuff that I was dreaming about as a kid. So now that I'm showing clients houses, I actually get ideas like what to do with my house,
Yeah.
and it just people look for that professional advice. So when
Yeah.
I'm showing personal, if it's friends or family, they're coming to me for my advice. They don't want me to hand it off to someone else. So I try to do as much as I can as far as servicing the client. But you get overextended sometimes. So,
Yeah.
I try to get other people
And
involved.
like just your quality of life and like family.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So I try to mix it up a little both.
So how many agents do you have over your 3 offices that are in real estate, not in the property management side?
Close to 40 between the 3 offices.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then what about employees on the property management?
We have
What's the
7
team look like?
full-time employees.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and we're just over 500 units. We service Delaware County, Bucks County, Montgomery County, and Philadelphia.
Okay. And would you say that your clients for the property management are you like heavier on realtor clients or just other investors? What do you think like the percentages guesstimate?
So when I first started, it was mostly clients that I've sold investments to,
Mhm.
and they had nowhere to turn. They didn't want to be landlords, but they wanted to invest in real estate. So at the time when I had merged in with another company, I had a book of business of probably 100 clients with investment properties
Right.
that I sold them the properties, but then they were like, all right, well, who's going to collect the rents? Like, I don't want to do all that stuff. So I kind of put me in that position to open up the company. And then I'd say I have a good amount of personal clients that own 1 or 2 properties. Some have larger portfolios. Then I also have people that during the downturn of the real estate back in 2008, I had a lot of people that were either buying flips or had houses that they couldn't sell.
Yeah.
And I was able to convince them to rent the properties out. And now, 12, 13, 14 years
Sure, they're
later,
happy that they did
yeah,
that.
they have good tenants. Now it's an investment for them. It's residual income. It could be generational wealth. It gives them options and leverage where some of them didn't even consider it. And then I have a small, probably 20% of my portfolio is like larger investors that have 60, 70, 80 properties.
Yeah.
So I have a mix of both. And then realtors, a lot of my connections, obviously with you're with a different company. I have a lot of different brokerages and different real estate agents with different companies that need an outsource because their brokerage doesn't do the property management. So I keep professional relationships with pretty much every realtor in the business,
Yeah.
and I try to give the realtors a discount on their personal properties, because they don't want to deal with it. But in return, they'll refer clients to me as well. And
Yeah.
you
I mean,
know,
that's literally me.
yeah,
I don't have you managing any properties for me right now, but if I were to purchase a property, especially in Philadelphia, I would not be managing it. I would not be collecting rent. I would not be doing any of the
Right.
things. I want you to call me when it burns down and that's it. Like, just let me know if it's not like over $1,000 damage. I don't want to know about
Right.
it. Like
and
that kind of
that's
thing.
and that's a lot of people, like, they don't want to do stock market. A lot of
Yeah.
people like real estate, but they don't want to deal with the maintenance calls or the licensing or collecting the rents. And it's a service we provide, and then, we get paid for it. And like you said, Philadelphia is one of the more challenging counties as far as obtaining licenses, filing for evictions. Their
Yeah.
paperwork is very, they change it all the time. So when we deal with it, we know the attorneys and they give us all the updated addendums or paperwork to stay compliant.
Now, if I was getting an investment property, if I was purchasing an investment property and I planned on doing like Section 8 or some type of housing like that, would you help me with that, or would you defer that to an attorney to do that?
No, we handle it all. It's similar paperwork. You just have different leases with Section 8 or
Yeah.
PHA. There's different guidelines.
Yeah.
So certain things and rules and regulations you need to know. So normally if you came to me with a property and I would ask you, would you be open to Section 8 or PHA clients?
Yeah.
Because there is repairs that you have to do. They have yearly inspections. So it's a little bit different than dealing with a normal everyday tenant. When you sign up with PHA, like I said, there's other guidelines, and some owners are willing to do it, others aren't. So I try to have that conversation when I first take over the property. And then you're open to it. We process the paperwork, we sign the lease, and we collect the rents.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would handle all that.
We're both taking a drink break. If you guys have never been on a podcast before, there's a bunch of lights and it's really hot and you can't put the air on because the air is loud, and yeah. So we're just going to both take a sip.
Water, not alcohol.
This is not water. Water, playboy. So there was another question I was going to see. Oh, okay. So first time I met you was when you did a presentation at one of my old market centers.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I wanted you to touch on today that I really appreciate and respect is your way of kind of like that networking relationship building. Can you talk about so let's say I refer you, I have an investor and he doesn't want to be a landlord, and I say call Walt, which I do every single time. And he says in a year he decides he wants to sell.
Yep.
And he tells you that.
Yep. So we have professional relationships with obviously agents like you and other brokerages. And the software system that we use is we keep track of all our leads.
Yeah.
So if you give us a client, we put it in our system or a database that Juliana is the one that referred this client over. And let's just say you lose track of them. They do contact me because we deal with them on an everyday basis. They say, oh, you're doing such a great job. We want to buy another investment.
Yeah.
So once we see that, we look up in the database where that lead came from. We'll contact you and say, listen, Joe is looking to buy another investment property. He's doing well. This is what he's looking for. And the business relationship we have with you and the other agents is that we don't want a referral or anything. We just want to keep managers and investments.
Yeah.
So if he finds another one, you get the commission. We get another one for management.
Yeah.
And we all win. And that's the goal. I mean, we're all doing this to make money to support our families. Your investors are getting into real estate because they want to, set up stuff for their futures as well.
Yeah. And I think that it helps that you are coming from both sides of it before you were just getting into property management. So I think you get it better than most do. But that was one thing that I remember you talking about in that presentation. And I was like, that is like the most lucrative way to maintain business.
And it is, because the realtors are the ones that have the investors.
Yeah.
So I have my book of business, my book of clients, but I only can do so much. So networking with all these other realtors and brokers, it's a great idea. And a lot of people don't want to deal with the liability. They don't want to deal with all the work that's involved.
Yeah.
So luckily we have a good reputation. We have good staff. We have good systems. And we try to do the best we can for the investors, and the realtors appreciate it.
That was and that's big for me because most of the people that I have referred to Walt have been people in leaseback situations. So let's say I have a client that needs to lease the property back to the seller for a period of time before they move in. So after they settle, they lease the property back to them. They're essentially, the seller rents their own house from them. Just because timelines don't line up with maybe the seller's buy or whatever the case may be, it gets negotiated in. So I'm not managing that money, and neither is the buyer, especially if they're coming from out of town. They don't know what's going on. They don't have landscapers. They don't have plumbers, whatever's happening. I'm not being responsible for that. A lot of times, there was one time we had this crazy deal. This woman was insane. out of her mind.
Thank you for that referral.
I owe Walt and everybody at 2020 Real Estate a lot of many drinks. This woman was out of her mind. I had the buy. My partner at the time was the listing agent. So we were in-house dealing with this craziness. But luckily, 2020 was there to kind of mediate almost. Like just be that middle ground so I didn't have to answer the phone call of like, well, like who pays for this and who's in charge of this and where do I send the, deposit to and who has the keys and that kind of thing. And of course, like for you, I'm sure that was just comes with the business of like every once in a while you get one of these that like you don't.
She was a little extreme, but we try to put ourselves in their position. So that was her house for multiple years. I don't even know how many years.
Like 30, I think.
Yeah. So living in a house for 30 years and it's your own house. And then next thing you know, you're a tenant in your own house. Yeah. So we try to take that into perspective. And then she got to the point where she complained about everything. So we said, wait a minute.
She was insane.
The buyers, do they know all these problems? Because you didn't disclose all these problems when you were living there.
Well, yeah.
And now
isn't that something, right? So it's like we have an inspection, right? Buyers are buying this house. They get it inspected. There's a list. We negotiate repairs. We come to an agreement on a credit. And then once we're getting to the post-settlement possession, so it was like a 6-month lease back, the seller was like, okay, well, I'm not responsible for this house anymore. If I need my HVAC fixed or I need something done or there's an issue, I'm going to let management know. But it's just funny because everything was immaculate when she was selling it.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden she's renting it and now it's not so immaculate. And it's just like she was absolutely out of her mind.
Yeah. So
that lady was out of her mind. But what I was trying to say is that I didn't have to deal with anything and the property management
took all the phone calls and dealt with it.
And it was really good for me to say, for my clients to be like, okay, they had never did a lease back situation. Most people don't know what it is. They don't even know it's an option. And so as me being the expert and having, okay, we're going to negotiate X, Y, Z. This is how we're going to get the deal done. And also Walt and his company, he's going to do all of this. He's going to handle it, make it easy. And being able to provide that value and that contact and knowing that now you're going to be talking to my clients, you're not going to steal them is, I think, really valuable for me. I'm all about having that type of resource.
Yeah, and it helped you. I got the deal done. I mean, it seemed like the buyers were flexible as far as a move-in date. Sellers were stuck on staying there for however long. So it's just another resource for you to able to close deals. If that situation wasn't there, you might not have been able to close it. So it was creative and everybody cooperated. I mean, obviously we deal with just the everyday stuff, but it was a good source for you to be able to get the deal done, and hopefully your clients were happy in the end, so.
As long as I don't have to deal with it. As long as my clients are happy and I can sub out the aggravation, I'm happy, the clients are happy. Listen, I'll pay whatever it is. And then we did it again. I had it on like just a 1 month. But those clients were like super simple. Everybody around that one was like, it was like you weren't even there.
Yeah, because on the real estate side, it is difficult for people that have to sell a house to buy another house.
Yeah.
To coordinate everything to be in one day between 2 different families, two different households, title company, mortgage companies. So being creative as a realtor and experienced like you are, you get creative with the stuff. So, it's, if everybody cooperates, it's a good situation. And like you said, we'll handle the phone calls, the escrow money, we'll handle that stuff. And, it's all about just trying to make the transaction easy for the client.
This episode is brought to you by Castle Public Adjusters. If you have fallen victim to property damage, Castle Public Adjusters is your first and only call to make. They will make sure that you get the maximum compensation for your property loss. And remember, avoid the hassle. Just call Castle, 215-752-1237. Also, first time I wrote a lease that I sent to Walt, he calls me, leaves me a voicemail. I wish I still had the voicemail. It was in the nicest way possible. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. Which I didn't, because I think I've done like 2 leases total that have, besides what we did, those lease back things, actual where a renter has come to me and then I found them a place. I think I've done 2 total in 3.5 years. I just never do them.
No, and that's the thing. Like a lot of realtors, most people stay in their comfort zone.
Yeah.
If you're involved in commercial leasing, commercial deals, leasing, like people think leases are easy.
Yeah.
They could be, but there's language in there that you want to make sure you're covered and you're protected. Um, it's always, if you get to the problem where there's a problem and you didn't do it right, then it could be an issue. But
Yeah.
we do them every day, and it's
Yeah.
just, some of the language or terms like we put in there. And like when we work with you, like you learned on the first one, just let us do it,
Yeah.
or I'll help you
Well,
with it or whatever.
And now I know.
Yeah.
Like, I think the voicemail went like, hey, it's Walt. Just wanted to go over a few things from this lease you sent me. Just a couple things, just want to touch on that. Give me a call whenever you get a chance.
So that's when I first met you. Now I'm like, Juliana, don't touch the lease.
Yeah. But now I do know, like, I've filled out what I need to fill out. Right. And it's, I don't know. That's how I am as far as like learning stuff, especially in this business, is that once someone just tells me the way to do it, then I'm like, okay, now I know. And so I think we had like a 15-minute phone call and you're like, okay, go to this line. Yep. This is not this.
Yep.
This doesn't go here.
Yeah. But now I was like, okay. Which is good. Yeah, and that's how I learned too. I learned the same way, just people telling me what to do, how to do it the right way. And then, through experience, you just perfect it.
I think I had someone else in that market center that I was working with at the time that was filling out a lease and they were going to give it to you. And I was like, just let Walt do it. I was like, I don't really think you need to do that. I think you should just let him do what he wants to do. But no, that's another part of like, back to like resources and leverage. Like I didn't know, and it wouldn't have been my client's best interest to just do it by myself or like just figure it out. And so like having someone like you and continuing to do that in other parts of my business, I think has allowed me to be successful and have my clients be happy about it. Also, there was another thing I was going to say. Oh, yes. So in regards to networking and connections, how has that also helped your business? Because I know as far as being in the property management, you have to have like a list of people, whether it's plumbers or contractors and how did you kind of like build that list?
So like I said, I started when I was around 18. So I've probably been through hundreds of different types of contractors. And I guess different stages of life that you're in, you find people at different stages of their life. So sometimes you'll find contractors that are hungry, that'll run right out, get the job done, be done. You have some larger contractors that depend on other workers that, they have employees or subs that have to get done. So throughout the 20-some years I've been doing this, I feel like I have a solid book of reliable contractors in every field, pest control, roofing, plumbing, electrical. But even it's an ongoing battle. I mean, you just never know. Sometimes they get overwhelmed, like with the real estate market being as hot as it was. There was plenty of work. They were overwhelmed. Some couldn't get out to jobs for 2-3 weeks. Now that the market slowed down a little bit, the economy slowed down. Now they're looking for work, so they'll get out right away. So it's an ongoing battle. Yeah. But if you get the right people, my experience is if you can find people that are honest and reliable, you might pay a little bit more, but it's getting done right. You don't have to worry about it again. That's the kind of contractors that we look for. Yeah.
I mean, I've had, it's a little bit better now, but I know in like the past year, like let's just say I have an first-time homebuyer appraisal and there needs to be a railing put in the house. Like I'm not going to put the railing up, me personally, if I don't have to. And it's hard to get somebody just to go out and do something small like that. And so I feel like also on the property management side, when you have like odds and ends, like repairs to be made on the properties, like you need to have
like a handyman or general contractor.
And probably more than one,
I would
course. Say.
Yeah, I mean, we probably have well over 100, 125 different contractors that we sub out to because like we're about, as cold as it is now, it's supposed to be in the 20s over the weekend.
Yeah.
I guarantee we're going to get emergency calls for heaters or, systems fail and thermostats, things like that. So you don't want to have one guy running all over the city for emergency calls. So we try to have at least 5 or 6 different contractors in every trade.
Yeah.
If one can't get to it, we try the next one and, try to keep the tenants happy because if the tenants are happy, then normally they pay and, it keeps the owners happy if they're getting their money. So it's a circle of life that you have to just try to keep everything moving.
Yeah. Would you say, like, I know we kind of touched on this in the beginning, but how many of your property management clients are like totally hands off?
I'd
Because
say
you have like a kind
probably,
of two different levels to that, right?
yep, probably 60 to 70% are hands off.
Okay.
Yeah, they want to know what's going on, but they don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
So we send monthly statements. They have an online portal to see their, work orders created, rents
Yeah.
being paid, things like that. So some of them just want to see it every month. I have quite a few people that trust me 100%, where they're like, just whatever you feel.
Yeah.
And it's not my money, so I treat it like it's my properties. So if I see an estimate that comes in way too high, I'm going to question it. I'm going to ask why. If it makes sense, we'll move forward, and I'll call the owner and let them know, like, look, this is the justification for
Yeah.
this. Other cases, they got out, they fixed the leak, they took care of it, they billed us, and there's no questions, no problems. Then you got other people that aren't true investors. They have investment properties, but they almost cringe when there's a work
Still
order.
emotional.
Yeah, so they want to ask a million questions. They want to get a bunch of estimates, which, we try to handle that as well.
Yeah.
I understand, it's tough, but the one thing that some of the owners have to learn is that it's an investment property, and the tenants can't be without heat, or they can't be with a
Right.
leak,
And you can't take the door off if they don't pay.
no, not anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you want to just try to keep the tenants as happy as possible, and you want to keep the integrity of the property too. So if you have a water leak and you let it go, it's just going to deteriorate other parts of
Yeah.
the house, and it's just not good. So
Yeah.
you try to get them as fast as you can.
Yeah. That's like, I feel like a lot of people that work with property managements have had experience where, or that they're just like misguided belief that like the property manager is just gonna be like, oh yeah, this is what it's cost, or like not advocate for you and just go with higher price stuff and just like not kind of like advocate for their money. Or I've had, other people in the business who have had that issue where like, oh, well, like if I have Paul manage it, like,
Mhm.
I feel like the maintenance expenses are going to be high, or like
Right.
whatever it is, because that person's not like, they're just using their guy maybe that they
Right.
have a relationship with, and like this is what it is, what it costs, and he gets a lot of business from you and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I think that's another reason why, just like on an honesty level, like that's why like I enjoy like working with you and that kind of thing, because I know how you are as a business owner
Yeah,
and human.
we're structured to where we don't benefit from the maintenance.
Yeah.
Like, we don't add on or bump the numbers. So if it's the contractor's number, it's the contractor's number. It's more of a service we provide. We
Yeah.
profit off the monthly tenant acquisition, and we profit off of the management fees. And then a lot of our business also comes on the sales side. When investors, like our own investors, want to sell or buy, that helps us with our sales.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to get into, and I just consider it a job, like not a job, like a career that is
Yeah.
just constantly going. But it's a good source of referral business, and good source of even for me, like some of my investors, if they want to sell properties, and they just want to sell them as is, I can offer them a property if I'm still buying, or one of my
Yeah.
other investors can buy and just take over. With
It's good
tenants in
opportunity
there.
for you too. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll kind of like start to wrap this up. I know that when, like I was saying before, one of the first times I met you, we talked about how many properties you owned and your path. And we talked about that in the beginning. And that really inspires me and continues to inspire me. So for someone who's listening, whether they're a seasoned agent or they're new in the business, but they're maybe not well-versed in investing, what's your best advice as to getting started? I know you accumulated over time, and that's just something you have to go through, but what would be some advice you'd give someone getting into?
The one thing I've always done is raising a family. I always had a full-time job. I always had a part-time job on top of the full-time
Yeah.
job. And all my investments for real estate, I always kept that money separate. So from the first duplex I bought to the next property I bought, I just kept recycling that money. So if I made a profit of 9,000 one year, that would go towards the purchase of a next house for the following year, or it would pay off that current house. And then every year that went by, I just left it like it was a retirement account.
Yeah.
I have some investors that they make profit on a property. They're making like 9,000 a year. They go out and buy a car that costs them $9,000 a year, and then when a tenant doesn't pay, they get stuck and they hate the experience. So I always kept it separate from my everyday expenses, and then just have a budget. Like, if you live off a budget and don't live above your means, you can survive some of these harder markets, going through like what we're about to go through and what we did in 2008, if you just keep that money separate and,
Yeah.
because sometimes if you have 4 or 5 properties and you have 3 heaters go one year, that could take a big hit. If you have
Yeah.
3 tenants you're evicting, you could take a big hit and get a bad experience. So I just try to keep it separate for like a rainy day account.
Yeah, the rainy day. That's exactly what I was thinking as you were saying that. Like you always have to be prepared for
Yeah.
like water heaters and HVACs and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like it adds up.
Yep. And the other thing as an investor too, I always try not to feel pressured that I have to buy a property. I try
Yeah.
to make sure I find the right one and just maintain it. You have some people that I have quite a few out of town, actually out of country owners
Yeah.
that never seen their properties. And I usually do like a yearly inspection and I'll say, listen, you got to get the gutters cleaned or you have to get this upgraded. And they'll take our advice because properties that you bought 10, 15, 20 years ago, if you didn't upkeep them or remodel them, they're not worth what the current market is. But that's the other profitable part about owning investment properties is not only are you collecting the monthly income, you're going to get the appreciation.
Yeah.
So stuff I bought in 93 is worth way more than double, if not triple now, almost 20 some years ago. So it's to me, I love it. I'd rather invest in real estate all day long than anything else.
I think so. I've kind of like gotten my dad to do like more investing, and we don't have anyone in our family that was a real estate background. He did. I think it was right before '08 or maybe in that time period, he did a flip and it was like a break even situation. It was not something that was like, it wasn't a positive outcome. So it was something that he kind of like shied away from, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not doing this again kind of thing. I just think it was like wrong time, wrong group of people, that kind of thing. And so since I've gotten to the business, we've been going more that angle. And I think I've been able to be quicker at learning how to be less emotional about it because I'm in it every day. And so it's not as easy for him because he still sometimes will look at properties like we invest in Florida.
Right.
So he'll look at properties and think like, well, I wouldn't like this kitchen. And I'm like, well, you're not using this kitchen. It's not for you.
Right.
It's for somebody else. And guess what? They'll be just fine with this kitchen. You know,
That's
that
a good
kind
way
of
to
thing.
think. If you know the market and you're like, obviously you're a
Yeah.
professional, so you have some more insight than he would.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good
Yeah.
that you learned
So
that.
he's getting better, but I would say that probably because of your path, it's been easier for you yourself as an investor to not have that emotional attachment because you've kind of like grew through it.
Well, that's the thing. I started out young, so it was good because I think some of the decisions I make now are so easy and commonplace where if I would have started at 30, 40, I'd probably be a little bit more hesitant,
Right.
a little bit more scared. But when you're young, you're out there. Like
Yeah.
I had time to recover if I made mistakes. And I was very, very
That's probably the
fortunate.
difference between him and I too with
Yeah.
that. Like when I bought my house in Fishtown, a lot of people were like, oh my God, like that's so exciting. Congrats. They're like saying all this stuff. And I was like, I don't care. I don't know. I think like real estate just like ruined the emotional like excitement for me because now I just like it's not like it's just like yep, it's just another one
It's
on the
business.
list, you know?
Yeah, it's
like
business.
it's just kind of like it's just a part of the path of like the wealth building kind of thing.
And it's funny you said that because I have clients like sometimes even the newer realtors that come into the office, like we start to do this every single day.
Yeah.
And you don't realize like when you're finding that first time home buyer a house, the excitement, like they're already planning to have family over, pizza, they're going to paint everything, knock down walls. And
That's what keeps me excited. It's the first time home buyers that keeps that type of like fun.
Yeah. And then the same thing, like some of my investors, like they they're business oriented and they just know what to do with the properties and things like that.
I think it's kind of cool when someone calls you up and they're like, yeah, I don't care. What's the street? What's the number? Okay, cool. Yeah. What they want? All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like they don't care what the front looks like. They don't care what the layout
they know what
is.
they're going to do to
whatever.
it.
It's just a numbers game. But then I have people like I had a couple that just closed a few months ago. They're getting married in May. They're like a young couple, big Italian family. They're like the best. I love them so much. And everybody came to the inspection. Everyone came to walk through. They had pizza that night. They like set up a table, brought the tablecloth, like had the whole thing. Like it was like such an experience. And I loved like adding to that and helping them have that experience. But that's like the only time that you get that type of like.
And they all know that you're the realtor. So it's good.
I love it. Yeah, don't forget about me. I know you'll listen to this eventually. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you
This
for
is
having me.
like went by like that.
Yeah.
Do you know or have social media that you want people to?
Just 2020 real estate Facebook page.
Yeah.
We have a lot of our stuff on there.
Yeah.
We are going to be on designing spaces.
Oh yes, tell me about that real quick.
So Fox and MSNBC, I think,
that's
host
what it is.
designing spaces. So they're going to have us featured, me as the broker in 2020 real estate for the local Philadelphia market area. They're coming out to our office January 11th, so I'm not sure when it's going to air. I'll let you know. And then they're going to be doing a national show on us as well.
That's
So
super
investing
exciting.
in Philly. So hopefully you'll have me back and I can talk more about that.
Yeah. When you're famous.
Yep.
You have to remember that you'll still come back. So if you're not following me on social media, my social media for Instagram is JUL_the realtor. And for TikTok, it's JUL the realtor, no underscore. And that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you guys next week.